Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the stars through the wide viewing screen. His ship moved slowly through space near the Kepler system, where humans had built 3 small colonies. The year was 2387, and humanity had spread across 17 star systems, building peaceful homes among the stars. Jake had been patrolling this area for 6 months without seeing anything unusual. His crew of 25 men and women worked quietly at their stations, checking sensors and running routine scans. The Defender was not a big warship, but it carried enough weapons to handle pirates or raiders who sometimes attacked trade ships. Communications Officer Lisa Wong turned from her station with a worried look on her face. She had been trying to contact the colony on Kepler Prime for the past hour, but received no response. The colony had over 50,000 people and always answered radio calls quickly. Jake walked over to her station and looked at the communication logs. The last message from Kepler Prime had come 12 hours ago, reporting normal conditions. Since then, there had been complete silence, which was very strange for such a busy colony. Before Jake could give orders to investigate, something incredible happened. The space around them suddenly filled with massive ships that appeared from nowhere. These vessels were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They were dark gray with sharp edges and covered in strange symbols that glowed with red light. The alien ships were huge. The smallest ones were twice the size of the Defender, while the largest looked big enough to hold entire cities. Jake counted at least 30 vessels in the immediate area, and sensors showed many more appearing throughout the star system. Lieutenant Roy Adams at the weapons station shouted a warning. Energy readings from the alien ships were off the charts, and they were powering up what looked like massive weapons. Jake immediately ordered his crew to battle stations and tried to send a message to Earth warning them of the alien arrival. The lead alien ship sent a transmission that came through as harsh sounds mixed with electronic noise. The computer worked to translate the message and soon displayed words on the main screen. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire and demanded immediate surrender of all human forces and colonies. Admiral Kextar commanded the Zephyrian invasion fleet from his flagship. He looked at the small human ship with contempt, thinking these creatures would be easy to conquer. Like all the others his empire had defeated, the Zephyrians had conquered 43 different species across the galaxy, and humans would just be number 44. Jake refused to surrender and ordered his ship to retreat while sending emergency messages to Earth and other human colonies. The Defender turned away from the alien fleet and began accelerating toward the edge of the system, where it could jump to hyperspace. The Zephyrian response was swift and deadly. Bright red beams shot out from their ships, striking the Defender and 2 other human patrol vessels that had arrived to help. The alien weapons passed right through human energy shields as if they were not there at all. Jake watched in horror as the other human ships exploded around him. His own vessel shook violently as alien weapons tore through the hull. Systems failed throughout the ship, and the lights went out on the bridge. He could hear his crew shouting damage reports, but knew the Defender was doomed. With his last working communication system, Jake sent a final message to Earth. He warned them that the aliens possessed superior technology and were heading toward human space with a massive invasion fleet. The transmission cut off as another alien beam struck the bridge and everything went dark. On Earth, President Lisa Carter received Jake's warning message in her office in New Geneva. She immediately called an emergency meeting of the Terran Council, bringing together leaders from all human worlds. General Roy Phillips, head of Human Defense Forces, arrived within an hour, carrying grim reports from the outer colonies. The news was terrible. 3 human colonies had been completely destroyed with no survivors. The aliens had used weapons that could crack open planets and turn entire cities to dust in seconds. Human defensive fleets in the area had been wiped out without inflicting any damage on the invaders. General Phillips spread holographic displays across the council table, showing what little intelligence they had gathered about the Zephyrian Empire. Their ships were protected by energy barriers that deflected all human weapons. Their own weapons could destroy anything humans had built, including the strongest military vessels and planetary defense systems. President Carter asked how long they had before the aliens reached Earth. Phillips calculated that the Zephyrian fleet would arrive in the Sol system within 6 days if they maintained their current speed. He recommended immediate evacuation of Earth's population to hidden colonies in distant systems. The Council debated their options, but none were good. Humanity's total military force included 300 warships, spread across 17 systems. Intelligence reports suggested the Zephyrian invasion fleet contained over 2,000 vessels many times, larger and more powerful than anything humans possessed. Some Council members wanted to surrender, immediately hoping the aliens might show mercy. Others demanded they fight even if defeat was certain. President Carter listened to all arguments but knew humanity faced extinction either way. The Zephyrians had never shown mercy to conquered species, and surrender would only delay the inevitable. As the Council meeting continued, strange things began happening across human space. Automated monitoring stations that had been silent for thousands of years suddenly came online, sending coded messages to unknown destinations. Deep space sensors detected massive energy signatures moving through asteroid fields and empty regions where nothing should exist. Dr. Alex Turner, working at Research Station Omega-7, noticed unusual readings from sensors pointed toward the outer Sol system. Energy patterns unlike anything in human databases were building in intensity, coming from areas of space that should be completely empty. His colleague, Dr. Nina Brooks, suggested the readings might be equipment malfunctions, but the patterns were too organized and purposeful. On Earth, the population watched news reports with growing fear as word of the alien invasion spread. Cities around the world began emergency preparations while space elevators worked overtime, moving people and supplies to orbital stations. Many believed these would be humanity's final days. Unknown to everyone on Earth or in the Zephyrian fleet, ancient systems that had slept for millions of years were awakening. Deep in hidden places throughout the galaxy, machines built by a long-vanished civilization began receiving activation signals. Humanity's first contact with a hostile alien empire had triggered something that would change the course of galactic history. The Zephyrian Empire believed they were about to claim another easy victory over primitive creatures. They had no idea they were about to encounter guardians left behind by the most advanced species the universe had ever known. Dr. Alex Turner stared at his computer screen in disbelief as energy readings spiked higher than anything he had seen in 15 years of deep space research. His station Omega-7 orbited a small moon in the outer Sol system where he studied cosmic radiation and monitored space weather patterns for Earth Science Division. The readings were coming from an asteroid field that his team had mapped dozens of times before. Nothing unusual had ever been detected there, but now his instruments showed massive power sources hidden among the floating rocks. Dr. Nina Brooks, his research partner, ran additional scans confirming that something enormous was awakening in the asteroid belt. Alex immediately contacted Earth to report the strange discoveries, but received word that all communication channels were being used for military purposes. The Zephyrian invasion fleet had been detected approaching the Sol system, and Earth's government was coordinating planetary defenses. Meanwhile, Admiral Kextar commanded his fleet from the bridge of his flagship as they entered the outer regions of the human star system. His advanced scouts reported detecting only primitive defensive platforms and a few small patrol ships. The humans appeared to have no significant military presence that could threaten Zephyrian forces. The Admiral felt confident this conquest would be completed quickly like all the others. His empire had perfected the art of subjugating weaker species through overwhelming displays of technological superiority. Most civilizations surrendered after seeing just a small portion of Zephyrian firepower. Kextar ordered his scouts to begin the attack on outer system installations, while his main fleet advanced toward the inner planets. The scouts moved forward, in tight formations, expecting to encounter desperate but futile resistance from human defenders. What happened next shocked every Zephyrian officer. As the scout ships approached the asteroid field, several large rocks suddenly moved, revealing themselves to be camouflaged weapons platforms. These hidden defenses opened fire with energy beams that cut through Zephyrian shields like paper and destroyed the scout vessels instantly. The weapons technology was unlike anything in Zephyrian databases. Their energy signatures did not match any known civilization in the galaxy, including the most advanced species the Empire had encountered. The defensive platforms appeared to be millions of years old yet operated with perfect efficiency. Admiral Kextar demanded answers from his science officers, but none could explain what they had witnessed. The mysterious weapons had penetrated Zephyrian defenses that had never been breached by any enemy. The tactical computers could not even determine how the attacks had worked. Despite the setback, the Admiral ordered his main fleet to continue toward Earth. He believed superior numbers would overcome whatever ancient defenses protected the human system. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 43 species and would not be stopped by old machines left behind by extinct aliens. On Earth, President Carter and General Phillips watched satellite feeds showing the destruction of Zephyrian scout ships. Neither could explain how human defenses had suddenly become so powerful, since Earth possessed no weapons capable of such devastation. The technology appeared completely alien in origin. Emergency broadcasts went out across Earth, telling the population to take shelter in underground bunkers, while space forces prepared for the final battle. Most people believed they were witnessing humanity's last hours, as reports showed thousands of alien warships approaching their homeworld. Dr. Turner and his team detected massive energy buildups throughout the Sol system as more hidden installations came online. Whatever civilization had built these defenses had placed them strategically around every planet and major asteroid cluster. The defensive network was far more extensive than anyone had imagined. As the first Zephyrian battleships entered Earth's atmosphere, something extraordinary happened. Constructs larger than Earth's moon began materializing throughout the solar system, appearing from some form of advanced cloaking technology. Their designs were unlike anything humans or Zephyrians had ever seen. The Guardian ships looked almost alive, with flowing curves and crystalline sections that pulsed with internal light. They moved without visible propulsion systems and seemed to bend space around themselves as they took positions defending Earth and the other planets. Admiral Kextar stared in amazement at displays showing dozens of massive alien vessels surrounding his fleet. His tactical officers estimated each Guardian ship was 10 times larger than his flagship and radiated energy levels that exceeded entire Zephyrian battle groups. The lead Guardian construct sent a communication directly into the minds of every human on Earth and throughout the colonies. The message was clear and appeared in whatever language each person understood best. The Guardians identified themselves as creations of the ancients, a species that had transcended physical existence millions of years ago. According to the mental transmission, the ancients had seeded the galaxy with protection systems for species that showed promise for peaceful development. They had watched humanity for centuries, noting both the violent and cooperative aspects of human nature. Recent human expansion into space had been conducted with relatively little warfare between colonies, leading the ancients to activate their protection protocols. President Carter found herself able to communicate directly with the Guardian network through some form of quantum telepathy. The ancients explained that humanity was not the first species to receive such protection, but they were among the few to maintain peaceful development after technological advancement. Most species that received ancient protection either became dependent on the superior technology or used it to conquer their neighbors. The ancients hoped humanity would prove different and eventually become guardians themselves for other developing civilizations. General Phillips received tactical information from the Guardian systems showing him exactly how to coordinate Earth's defenses with the ancient technology. The Guardians would not fight the battle for humanity, but would provide support and protection, while humans learned to defend themselves. Dr. Turner's research station suddenly received massive data downloads containing scientific information about Guardian technology and ancient history. The downloads were carefully limited to knowledge humanity could understand and use safely, without becoming dependent on it. Admiral Kextar realized his empire faced technology that made their most advanced weapons look primitive. The Guardian ships had not yet attacked, but their mere presence demonstrated power beyond Zephyrian comprehension. He contacted the Zephyrian homeworld requesting immediate reinforcements. The Zephyrian High Command responded by dispatching their entire reserve fleet, including planet-killer vessels and experimental weapons. They refused to accept that any force could challenge their empire's dominance over the galaxy. As additional Zephyrian forces rushed toward the Sol system, the Guardian constructs began powering up weapon systems that had not been used for millions of years. The ancients had built these defenses to protect worthy species, but they would use overwhelming force if necessary to stop those who threatened the innocent. Earth's population watched in awe as Guardian ships took defensive positions around their planet. Many people reported receiving comforting mental messages assuring them that protection had arrived and the threat would be neutralized without harm to human civilization. The stage was set for a confrontation between an aggressive galactic empire and guardians left behind by the most advanced species the universe had ever known. Humanity found itself at the center of a conflict that would determine the future of galactic civilization. The Guardian constructs began transmitting detailed information directly into the minds of humans throughout the Sol system. Commander Steve Walsh, leading Earth's remaining defense fleet, found himself receiving tactical data about Zephyrian weaknesses and optimal attack strategies. The knowledge appeared in his consciousness as if he had studied it for years. The ancients had observed galactic civilization for millions of years before ascending to higher dimensions of existence. They had watched countless species rise and fall, learning that technological advancement, without moral development, always led to destruction. Only rarely did they find civilizations worthy of protection and guidance. Dr. Turner and his research team discovered that ancient artifacts found throughout human space had not been random discoveries. Mysterious ruins on 17 different human worlds had actually been guidance beacons, subtly influencing human development over the past 1,000 years. The ancients had been steering humanity toward peaceful cooperation while encouraging scientific advancement. President Carter learned through the Guardian network that humanity had been tested repeatedly throughout their expansion into space. The relatively peaceful colonization of new worlds and the establishment of cooperative trade networks had convinced the ancients that humans might eventually transcend their violent tendencies. The Guardian systems explained that they followed strict protocols established by the ancients millions of years ago. They would protect developing species from external threats but would not interfere with internal conflicts or natural development. Each species had to prove themselves worthy through their own choices and actions. Admiral Kextar grew increasingly desperate as his attacks proved completely ineffective against the Guardian defenses. Zephyrian plasma cannons that could crack planets simply disappeared when they struck Guardian energy barriers. The ancient technology operated on principles that Zephyrian science could not even detect, much less counter. The Admiral contacted the Zephyrian homeworld, demanding that the High Command send their most powerful weapons, including the dreaded planet-killer ships that could destroy entire worlds. He refused to accept that any force could challenge the Empire that had conquered 43 species across the galaxy. Commander Walsh coordinated with the Guardian network to begin systematic attacks on Zephyrian positions throughout the Sol system. Human ships enhanced with ancient targeting data could now strike Zephyrian vessels at their weakest points. The Guardians provided real-time intelligence but required humans to do the actual fighting. Dr. Nina Brooks, working with Xenocommunication specialists, established contact with Zephyrian crew members who were beginning to question their Empire's aggressive policies. Many alien soldiers had never encountered resistance like this and were starting to wonder if their cause was truly just. The Guardian constructs began demonstrating their overwhelming technological superiority by systematically dismantling Zephyrian ships without destroying them. Ancient weapons could target molecular bonds and quantum structures, causing enemy vessels to simply fall apart without explosions or loss of life. Escape pods launched from disabled Zephyrian ships were collected by Guardian rescue vessels and transported to holding areas where the alien crews were treated humanely. The ancients had programmed their systems to minimize casualties even among aggressive invaders whenever possible. Admiral Kextar watched in horror as his fleet was taken apart piece by technology he could not understand or counter. The Guardians offered surrender terms and safe passage home for all Zephyrian personnel, but the Admiral's pride prevented him from accepting defeat. The Zephyrian High Command responded to requests for reinforcements by sending their entire military, including experimental doomsday weapons and ships carrying planet-destroying bombs. They were determined to maintain their Empire's reputation for invincibility, even if it meant destroying the Sol system completely. Dr. Turner discovered through ancient data files that the Zephyrian Empire was actually a relatively young civilization that had developed advanced technology without wisdom. Their rapid expansion across the galaxy had been enabled by conquering and enslaving more peaceful species who possessed knowledge the Zephyrians lacked. President Carter used the Guardian communication network to contact leaders of species conquered by the Zephyrian Empire. She learned that rebellions were already beginning on dozens of worlds as news of the Zephyrian defeat spread across the galaxy. Oppressed populations were finally seeing hope for freedom. The Guardian systems revealed that ancient protection extended far beyond the Sol system. Hidden monitoring stations throughout the galaxy had been tracking Zephyrian expansion for centuries, waiting for the right moment to intervene. The attack on humanity had provided the necessary justification for galaxy-wide action. Commander Walsh received intelligence, showing that Guardian installations were activating in other star systems where Zephyrian forces were stationed. The ancient defensive network was emerging from hiding across hundreds of worlds to support liberation movements and protect innocent civilians. On the Zephyrian homeworld, panic spread through the government as reports arrived of Guardian attacks throughout their empire. Military commanders who had never experienced defeat found their most powerful weapons useless against ancient technology that seemed to operate outside known physical laws. Admiral Kextar made a desperate decision to ram his flagship into Earth, hoping to cause enough damage to disrupt the Guardian network. He believed that destroying the human homeworld might force the ancient systems to withdraw from the galaxy. The Admiral's ship broke formation and accelerated toward Earth at maximum speed while broadcasting threats to destroy the planet if the Guardians did not surrender. His crew tried to stop him, but Kextar had locked out all command systems and taken manual control of the vessel. Guardian constructs moved to intercept the Zephyrian flagship, but instead of destroying it, they used ancient technology to transport the entire ship into a pocket dimension, where time moved differently. There, Admiral Kextar would experience the history of every species his empire had conquered. In the pocket dimension, the Admiral lived through billions of deaths from the perspective of the victims. He experienced the fear and pain of entire civilizations as they were conquered and enslaved by Zephyrian forces. Subjective centuries passed as he witnessed the true cost of his empire's expansion. When Kextar's ship returned to normal space, only hours had passed, but the Admiral had aged decades in the pocket dimension. His mind was shattered by experiencing the suffering his empire had caused, and he immediately surrendered all Zephyrian forces. Unconditionally, Dr. Turner and President Carter worked together to establish communication protocols with liberated species throughout the galaxy. The Guardian network provided translation systems that allowed instant communication between dozens of different civilizations that had been freed from Zephyrian. Controlled news of the Empire's collapse spread rapidly as Guardian-assisted rebel forces liberated world after world. Species that had suffered under Zephyrian rule for generations finally tasted freedom, while their former oppressors faced justice for their crimes against galactic civilization. The ancient Guardians began preparing to return to dormancy. Now that the immediate threat had passed, they transmitted final messages to humanity explaining that protection came with responsibility, and that humans would now be expected to help defend other developing species from future threats. Earth found itself at the center of a new galactic coalition as dozens of freed species sought guidance and cooperation. The Guardian network would remain active for a limited time to help establish peaceful relationships, but humanity would eventually need to stand on its own as protectors of galactic peace. News of Admiral Kextar's surrender spread across the galaxy faster than Zephyrian commanders could contain it. On the conquered world of Kelva Prime Freedom Fighter, Zara 9 received coded transmissions from newly activated Guardian outposts confirming that the Empire's main fleet had been defeated at Earth. She immediately contacted resistance cells throughout Zephyrian space. The Kelvin resistance had fought against Zephyrian occupation for over 50 years using primitive weapons and guerrilla tactics. Now they found themselves receiving tactical support from ancient technology that made their efforts devastatingly effective. Guardian systems provided real-time intelligence about Zephyrian troop movements and supply lines. President Carter established direct communication with rebel leaders on 43 different worlds through the Guardian network's quantum communication system. Dr. Brooks and her xenocommunication team worked around the clock, coordinating a galaxy-wide liberation movement that was growing stronger every day. On the Zephyrian homeworld, chaos erupted as military commanders received conflicting reports from across their empire. Some claimed their forces were being attacked by unknown technology, while others reported complete communication blackouts from entire sectors. The High Command struggled to maintain control over their vast military machine. General Phillips coordinated with former Zephyrian officers who had abandoned their posts rather than continue serving. An empire they now realized was built on oppression and conquest. Many alien soldiers had been conscripted from conquered worlds and were eager to turn against their former masters. The Guardian constructs throughout the galaxy began systematically dismantling Zephyrian military installations, while offering safe passage to personnel who surrendered peacefully. Ancient technology could disable weapons and ships without harming the crews, allowing mass surrenders without bloodshed. Admiral Kextar, now broken by his experience in the pocket dimension, provided access codes to Zephyrian command networks from his cell on Earth. He had witnessed the suffering of billions and was determined to help end the empire he had once served with pride. His knowledge proved invaluable for coordinating the liberation effort. Commander Walsh led joint human-alien task forces using captured Zephyrian ships enhanced with Guardian technology. These mixed crews represented dozens of species working together for the first time in generations. Former enemies found common ground in their desire for peace and freedom. The Zephyrian government attempted to negotiate a ceasefire, offering to withdraw from recently conquered territories in exchange for keeping their core worlds. President Carter rejected these proposals, explaining that justice required complete dismantling of the imperial system and reparations for all victim species. Dr. Turner worked with ancient databases to identify Zephyrian War criminals and document evidence of crimes against galactic civilization. The Guardian Network had recorded detailed information about Empire activities for centuries, providing irrefutable proof of systematic oppression and genocide. Dozens of world simultaneous uprisings overwhelmed Zephyrian garrisons as local populations received weapons and tactical support from Guardian systems. Species that had been enslaved for generations fought with desperate courage, knowing this might be their only chance for freedom. The Zephyrian military command structure collapsed, as officers at every level either surrendered or abandoned their posts. Many high-ranking commanders had been recruited from conquered species and felt no loyalty to an empire that had oppressed their own people. Guardian constructs appeared in orbit around the Zephyrian homeworld, demanding the immediate surrender of all remaining government officials. The planet's defense systems were disabled in seconds by ancient technology that made Zephyrian weapons look like primitive tools. President Carter addressed the galaxy through the Guardian communication network, announcing the formation of the Galactic Liberation Council. This new organization would coordinate efforts to establish peaceful cooperation between freed species while ensuring that aggressive empires could never again threaten galactic civilization. The Kelvin Resistance leader Zara 9 was appointed as military coordinator for liberated worlds, helping to establish democratic governments and defensive alliances. Her experience fighting against oppression made her an ideal choice for preventing future conflicts. Dr. Brooks established translation protocols that allowed instant communication between hundreds of different species that had been separated by Zephyrian policies designed to prevent cooperation. For the first time in centuries, diverse civilizations could work together freely. Former Zephyrian territories were organized into autonomous regions governed by their original inhabitants with support from the Galactic Liberation Council. Ancient Guardian systems provided defensive protection during the transition period while local forces were rebuilt and trained. The Zephyrian homeworld was placed under Guardian supervision, with its population encouraged to develop peaceful democratic institutions. Many civilians had never supported their government's aggressive policies and welcomed the opportunity to build a better society. General Phillips worked with reformed Zephyrian military officers to establish war crimes tribunals throughout former Empire territory. The goal was not revenge but justice and reconciliation, allowing victim species to confront their oppressors while building foundations for lasting peace. Guardian technology was selectively shared with liberated species, but always with careful limitations to prevent dependency or misuse. The ancients had learned from experience that giving advanced weapons to unprepared civilizations often led to new conflicts. Admiral Kextar testified before war crimes tribunals, providing detailed information about Empire operations and accepting full responsibility for his role in the conquest of innocent worlds. His transformation from proud conqueror to repentant advocate for peace became a symbol of possible redemption. The process of dismantling the Zephyrian Empire took several months as Guardian forces methodically liberated every conquered world while ensuring minimal casualties among both oppressors and victims. Ancient technology made it possible to disable entire fleets without destroying them. Communication networks established by the Guardian systems allowed liberated species to share knowledge and resources freely for the first time in generations. Scientific and cultural exchange flourished as barriers imposed by imperial policies were removed. President Carter found herself coordinating relief efforts for billions of beings across hundreds of worlds as the true scale of Zephyrian oppression became clear. The Empire had systematically exploited conquered species while suppressing their development and destroying their cultures. Dr. Turner documented the restoration of lost civilizations as Guardian. Databases revealed historical information about species that had been nearly extinct under Zephyrian rule. Ancient records allowed these cultures to reclaim their heritage and rebuild their societies. The Guardian constructs began preparing for their eventual withdrawal as temporary protection gave way to permanent defensive alliances between liberated species. The ancients had always intended their intervention to be temporary until worthy civilizations could protect themselves. As the Zephyrian Empire crumbled completely, its former territories transformed into a loose confederation of free worlds working together for mutual benefit. The galaxy had been fundamentally changed by the revelation that advanced protectors watched over developing civilizations. Earth found itself at the center of galactic civilization not through conquest but through moral leadership and the trust placed in humanity by the ancient guardians. The responsibility was enormous, but so was the opportunity to build a better future for all species. 6 months after the failed Zephyrian invasion, Earth had become the diplomatic center of a new galactic civilization. The Galactic Liberation Council met daily in Geneva, coordinating efforts to establish lasting peace between dozens of formerly enslaved species. President Carter found herself mediating disputes and building consensus among civilizations that had been enemies for generations. Each liberated world governed itself according to its own traditions and values while contributing to collective defense and scientific advancement. The Guardian Network provided communication systems that made instant coordination possible across vast distances, but refused to impose any single form of government on the diverse species. Dr. Turner led joint research teams studying ancient technology, always with the permission and guidance of the Guardian systems. The ancients had left behind scientific principles and theoretical frameworks, rather than finished weapons or ships. Each species had to prove they could use such knowledge responsibly before receiving additional information. The Guardian constructs gradually reduced their active presence throughout the galaxy, encouraging the liberated species to develop their own defensive capabilities. They provided technological insights and training, but insisted that each civilization must build its own protection rather than depending on ancient systems. Jake Morrison had been discovered in a Guardian medical facility 3 months after his ship was destroyed. The ancient systems had detected the imminent destruction of the UES Defender and transported him to safety at the molecular level. He awakened to find himself appointed as humanity's first ambassador to the Guardian Network. Through Jake, the Guardians explained their long-term plans for galactic civilization. They intended to return to dormancy once the new Confederation could defend itself, but would continue monitoring for future threats. Humanity had proven worthy of protection and now faced the greater challenge of becoming protectors themselves. Admiral Kextar had undergone a complete transformation during his months of testimony before war crimes tribunals. The experience of witnessing billions of deaths from the victims' perspectives had shattered his old beliefs and rebuilt his personality around concepts of justice and reconciliation. The former admiral now traveled between liberated worlds, helping to establish truth commissions and healing processes for communities that had suffered under Zephyrian oppression. His presence served as proof that even the most hardened warriors could change when confronted with the true consequences of their actions. Commander Walsh oversaw the construction of humanity's first Guardian-assisted starship at the orbital shipyards above Earth. The vessel, incorporated principles learned from ancient technology, but was powered by human innovation and built using resources contributed by allied species throughout the galaxy. The new ship represented partnership, rather than dependence, combining the best knowledge from dozens of civilizations into a vessel designed for exploration and peacekeeping. Its crew would include representatives from every liberated species working together under human leadership. Dr. Brooks established cultural exchange programs that allowed young beings from hundreds of worlds to study together on Earth and other peaceful planets. These educational initiatives aimed to build lasting friendships between species that would prevent future conflicts. The Kelvin Resistance leader Zara 9 had been elected as the first Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Force, responsible for coordinating military cooperation between all liberated worlds. Her experience fighting oppression made her uniquely qualified to understand both the necessity of force and the importance of restraint. Guardian technology was carefully distributed to species that demonstrated readiness for such responsibility. The ancients had established strict protocols requiring unanimous approval from the Liberation Council before any advanced weapons or defensive systems could be shared. President Carter addressed the first Galactic Assembly, bringing together elected representatives from every free world to establish laws and institutions that would govern their growing civilization. The Assembly met in a massive space station built cooperatively by all member species. The proceedings were conducted using Guardian translation technology that allowed instant communication between hundreds of different languages and thought patterns. For the first time in galactic history, diverse species could truly understand each other without barriers. Dr. Turner announced breakthrough discoveries in ancient science that would allow the construction of new Guardian-type vessels within 50 years. The technology would remain under collective control, preventing any single species from dominating others through superior firepower. Former Zephyrian worlds had been integrated into the Galactic Confederation with their populations, encouraged to contribute positively to the new civilization. Many former Empire citizens welcomed the opportunity to build rather than destroy and brought valuable skills to reconstruction efforts. The war crimes tribunals had processed thousands of cases, resulting in justice for victims while offering paths to redemption for perpetrators willing to accept responsibility for their actions. The process emphasized healing and prevention rather than punishment alone. Jake Morrison reported that the Guardian systems were detecting new threats in distant regions of the galaxy where other aggressive empires might exist. The ancient defensive network extended far beyond known space and was already preparing for potential future conflicts. Children from dozens of species now played together in schools throughout human space, learning about cooperation and peaceful conflict resolution from an early age. These young beings would grow up in a galaxy where diversity was celebrated rather than feared. The Guardian constructs began their final preparations for returning to dimensional storage. Their massive ships would remain hidden but accessible if truly dire threats emerged that the Galactic Confederation could not handle alone. Commander Walsh launched the new starship, UES Guardian, on its maiden voyage with a mixed crew of humans and aliens exploring regions of space that had been forbidden under Zephyrian rule. The ship's mission was to contact isolated civilizations and offer them membership in the growing galactic community. Admiral Kextar delivered his final testimony to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, accepting a sentence of lifetime service helping to rebuild the worlds his empire had destroyed. His transformation had become a symbol of hope, that even the worst conflicts could lead to understanding and peace. President Carter announced that Earth would gradually transfer leadership of the Galactic Confederation to a council of representatives from all member species. Humanity had proven itself worthy of trust, but the ancients had always intended for their protection to lead to equality rather than dominance. Dr. Turner published the first comprehensive guide to ancient science, allowing researchers throughout the galaxy to begin developing their own advanced technologies. The knowledge was shared freely with all species committed to peaceful development and mutual cooperation. The Guardian systems transmitted their final message to galactic civilization. As their constructs faded back into dimensional storage, they expressed pride in humanity's growth and confidence that the diverse species of the galaxy could now protect each other from future threats. The message concluded, with words that would be remembered for generations. Across hundreds of worlds, the galaxy was vast and filled with both wonders and dangers. There would always be those who needed protection and guidance. Humanity and its allies now carried the responsibility, once borne by the ancients. As the last guardian construct disappeared, from normal space children from dozens of species looked up at stars that held infinite possibilities, they would inherit a galaxy where cooperation triumphed over conflict and where the strong protected the weak rather than exploiting them. The story of humanity's first contact with hostile aliens had become the foundation myth of a new galactic civilization built on principles of justice, freedom, and mutual respect. Earth remained the symbolic center of this confederation, but leadership was shared among all worthy species. In the years to come, humanity would face new challenges and discover new civilizations, both friendly and hostile, but they would never again face such threats alone. The galaxy had learned that cooperation was stronger than conquest, and that the greatest victories came through building rather than destroying.